All right, guys, welcome back to another version of Benny and the Guest, hopefully streamed actually as a video tonight. Tonight is our esteemed guest, Teddy Colgate. Teddy, it's an honor to have you on. Say hello to the peeps.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Benny. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk to you tonight.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Teddy and me, we really haven't known each other too well. We've been kind of communicating through emails, obviously. I'm kind of, I've been, as I'm growing, I'm branching out and I'm learning it's more fun, honestly, like this to understand, hey, this is what people are all about. So, Teddy, walk us through. Obviously, you're a distinguished Marine Corps veteran. You're involved with a nonprofit we'll get to later. But for right now, can you discuss your kind of beginnings and early, that childhood, and then what brought you to the Marine Corps and, that track as it goes?
Sure, sure. I was born and raised in a small town in Indiana, right on the border of Ohio, right outside of Cincinnati, and came from a divorced family. And my folks got divorced when I was about seven or eight, somewhere thereabouts. And it was pretty traumatizing. As a boy, you want your dad around, and I never really realized how angry I was until, you know, 25 years later, 30 years later.
Yeah.
So
It
it really
hits
it
like
really
that. Yeah.
yeah, and it comes down to really like reflecting on what I do now. I have 3 boys, and unfortunately, I have divorced their mom. So you put that on top of everything else, and I struggle with that every day. How I felt as a youngster, and now seemingly doing that to my boys, and that's tough to handle on a day to.
I'm sure that's a lot to carry on.
So, and then just small town America didn't really have a pot to piss in as a family. Rural Indiana, and my dad lived in Ohio, and my folks were about 10 minutes apart, but it was the typical every other weekend type thing. Then my freshman year of high school, my mom just packed us up and we moved to Florida and finished high school in Florida. Had some issues in high school, just out of place.
Had to
I
be
was
a
an
big
athlete.
adjustment, right? From
Yeah,
Indiana to Florida.
yeah, it was a huge school. I was an athlete, so I got along with people, on the ball field or in sports and through sports. But socially, I was just kind of try to get in where I fit in, and never really, seemingly looking back, again, this is all reflection, just didn't find that niche, through high school. Um, I had some series of unfortunate events where I was caught drinking at the prom and was expelled from high school during
No.
during my exams, so my semester exams, which you don't get to make up that work. So I lost a whole semester of high school because I was the example made for drinking at the prom. So,
Oh, man.
which, you know, looking back again, I'm pretty thankful for, because that led me to sit around and figure out what was next. And then I ended up enlisting in the Marine Corps and had to go back to another semester of high school just to meet my graduation requirement, because the plan was, well, I'll just take my GED, whatever, and get out of here. And this was in '89, and recruiter was like, "No, son, we don't do that anymore," which I'm thankful for. Joining the Marine Corps, was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, less than a year in the Marine Corps. So I was in a
Gee.
pretty cool.
Yeah. What'd you join as? What was your initial job?
So I was open contract.
Oh, man.
So
We always sorry for those not in, right? Open contract means, which Army doesn't really do it too much. I don't know if the Army does it at all, but then I know the Navy and the Marine Corps do it. You join, you go to basic and everything, and then you get your job typically. And it's needs of the Marine Corps or whatever, but it's a scary. We always thought it was a scary thing because you're like, you don't even know what job you're gonna have. You could end up being a cook or whatever
Sure.
you think.
Well,
That's
and
pretty
that's the thing.
intense.
It's like, I did very well at recruit training, so I enjoyed it. I think I was ready for it, and so my first unit, I got to a second Anglico in Camp Lejeune, Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company. Didn't know what it was. Show up there and get dropped into a communications platoon as a radio operator, and loving life. Then boom, get a, billet to jump school, and I go down to Fort Benning, jump out of planes for a bit, and then come back, and I'm in the desert of old Saudi Arabia there, like
Damn.
under a year in the Marine Corps, thinking like, man,
Yeah.
this is what I signed up to do. And but again, 18 or 19 years old, you don't really know what to expect. You just want to do everything.
Did you with that jump school, obviously, because I know for us there's certain tracks that leads you to for Marine Corps. Is Anglico what you're talking about? Was that a prerequisite basically to be in that unit, or was that leading you towards something different?
Yeah, so no, it's at the time there were very few jump units in the Marine Corps. Anglico being one, Force Recon, Recon Battalion being another one, and then Air Delivery being another one. So
Okay.
um, yeah, so it was just one of those things where, and to get paid for jumping in the Marine Corps anyway, I think some services do it different, but in the Marine Corps, you have to be in a bona fide jump billet.
Same. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so and which is pretty cool because again, not knowing what I didn't know, I'm getting extra $100 a month or whatever it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
and so that was pretty cool as a young guy. But so less than a year in, obviously Desert Storm didn't turn out to be much. We were kind of attached to the Tiger Brigade, the Army tanks, and you know just sat on our hands quite a bit and came back. Again, just enjoying life, enjoying training, and being in a unit, being able to jump out of kilos and fixed wing nonstop, and then I get orders to HMX-1 to fly the president.
Wow.
So had no idea what that was, and at this point, I'm 20 years old. Had no idea, did not care. All I wanted to do was stay. And my boss says, "No, this is an accepted command, so you're going." So I get up to Quantico, and I end up getting my clearance and everything else, and then I got moved to the White House liaison office. Another super cool job. Uh, I traveled with the president. There was 11 of us in my office that were one of us was always with him, and I did a lot of local stuff. I did a lot of heads of state, vice president flights, and first lady flights, things like that. So it was pretty cool.
What if I could jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
This is you're basically 2 3 years into your military career, right?
Yeah. So
And you've already conducted Operation Desert Storm, and you're working for the president now directly. That's a lot for anyone, I guess, to really understand or whatever. Were you enjoying all of this at the time? Was it like you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, or were there a lot of high pressure moments where you didn't understand, or you were like, why is it, or was it dumb stuff, or how did that flow for you?
well, matured me very quickly.
Sure.
I was working with high vis people. I was always around folks that way outside my pay grade, and but I needed to respond accordingly, and I needed to conduct myself at their level, not the other way around. So I think I rose to the challenge, and I really enjoyed that aspect because it was so challenging, and I never knew what was around the corner. However, I knew it was super important. So it was just folks that relied on me, and it's a lot of it's timing where, that helo has to hit a certain mark at a certain time because everyone else is waiting on him or what have you, So coordinating all that stuff very eye opening for the bigger picture. And I did get divorced during that tour,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was related to the job. I think I was gone a lot, and I'm guessing that she probably saw me in a suit nonstop, living the good life, traveling all over, but not the behind the scenes stuff that you have to grind and go without meals, and because you don't have time to do those things. So, but neither here nor there. At the end of that enlistment, I was looking to exit the Marine Corps,
Okay.
and I had made some buddies in the Secret Service on certain details, and they're like, "Well, why don't you just join the Secret Service?" And I didn't have my degree at the time, so the option was become a uniformed Secret Service agent, or officer, and that just didn't really excite me.
Yeah.
So I opted to reenlist. Went to Okinawa, Japan, for 3 years, and thought that my goal, which I was successful in, I set my goal as I'm not going to leave Japan until I have my 4 year degree, and I was able to do that in 2.5 years. So I got there with one college course under my belt, and then knocked it out in 2.5 years. And I was taking courses or getting credit for anything and everything.
Anything you could do, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, I gotta hit some marks. That's
yeah,
You're putting so much out there, and it's such an interesting career, and it's happening. I think you're telling it as it does, right? It happens so quick in the time frame. You're like someday, like it's we always used to say, like on the trail, we would say long days, fast months, right? So like the days seem like they drag on forever, but then 6 months hit, and you're like, oh my god, it's over already. Like that's crazy. You go, obviously you're at HMX, and then you go out to Japan. Was that a big shift though for like you're obviously those are way different missions than what you were doing before, and you're working on college now, so you're trying to balance that. Was it a huge shift? Were you doing okay with all that, or was it a big adjustment?
but it was a big adjustment because although I was a sergeant at HMX, you know, I was in an office that had a gunnery sergeant, E7, and we had 8 captains and 2 majors, right? So that was where we were. So depending on what I was doing that day, you know, the gunny, the captain, or even a major are scooping up trash and making sure the office is locked up before they leave. So you fast forward and you go back to the real Marine Corps, basically, and
Yeah, yeah, it's so different. I think that's all I'm thinking is like the little monotonous stuff. You're like,
yeah,
and then you get there and you're like, what?
well, and I operated at a very high level, and I functioned, and my thought process at that point were well beyond my rank. And I had some issues. I was a platoon sergeant at the time, so but still I had issues with like my chiefs and lieutenants and things like that because I outthought them. And I would think that that's part of the maturity that I gained being at HMX and in that position that I was in was because it set me up for a higher level of thinking, and it was hard to deal with, I think, for folks that I work for. So because I always felt like I could think 3 and 4 steps ahead, and I could emergency action plan 3 and 4 levels down the road. And that's hard to constantly tell somebody like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, that's a great idea, that's a great idea. At some point they're going to, and this is what I got. It's like, yeah, we got it, you know we'll handle it, or whatever. And I'm thinking,
Sure,
well,
sure.
because when you're at that faster pace and you're thinking at a higher level, you you are operating more efficiently, you're streamlining things.
It's nothing on those guys around you that you're working with. Like that's what they're used to. You're at something you already operated higher, so you're trying to show that hey, this is what we can do, and some people refuse to take that.
Yeah,
They don't want to hear that
yeah,
for
we had
you know.
I had 2 gunnies that I mean, we butted a lot of heads, and you know, I mean, at the end of the day, they told me to go sit in the corner, and that's what I had to do. You know, but I always felt like I brought a lot to the table after HMX, and which is hold that thought because I'm when I get to my journey, you're going to understand my frustration. So I was leaving. I got my degree in Okinawa, Japan, and I was leaving. I was going to exit the Marine Corps again, and my CEO says, "Hey, I want to talk to you." So I go in his office, and basically there was a commissioning package, and one of the commissioning boards was getting ready to meet, and he basically walked me through so I could submit my package. And he was like, "Just humor me, whatever." So I submitted it, got accepted, and left Japan and went straight to officer candidate school. So
Wow.
yeah, so it was again okay. So you mentioned the transition from HMX to the real Marine Corps, right?
Yeah, yeah. So now you're going from real Marine Corps to OC.
Yes. So it's like, and at this
You're
point, I
riding a
think,
roller coaster, man. Your
yeah,
whole career.
my whole life is
Yes.
like that, right?
Yes.
So then I leave Okinawa. OCS is on Quantico. Officer Candidate School for the Marine Corps is on Quantico. HMX is on Quantico. So I know a lot of people here.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd remarried during this time.
While you're in Japan, or
Well, no,
I,
but
I
right,
or
yeah,
right
right
before?
before we left,
Okay.
she was a Virginia State Trooper, and and she's from Virginia. So my thought was, well, she's in Japan, and what they want to do is they want to send you back to OCS. Should something happen where you don't make it, then you go back to Okinawa, right?
Well, yeah.
So your family would stay in Okinawa, whatever. And so I kind of finagled the system, and I got orders to Quantico enlisted, and I sent her back to Quantico prior to my orders going to OCS became effective.
Okay. Okay.
So she's back in Quantico. I'm still in Japan, waiting for the board to let out, which I knew it was a good chance. So boom, I get selected. She's already in Quantico. So now I just come to Quantico and she's already here. So I check in and I'm on leave, and I'm playing golf and I'm going to the gym and things like that on Quantico. And two of my buddies were gunnery sergeants, and we hung out quite a bit. Well, they were company gunnies for two of the candidate training companies, right?
Okay. Okay. So they
So
got the inside scoop.
yeah, so I would, but they wouldn't mind. So when I check in, you go through the whole rigmarole, and then like first or second day, we're in the chow hall, and I hear a familiar voice, and he yells my name, Canada Colegate. So I go running over, yes, company gunner sergeant, and he's like, one of them's just like blasting me in the ear, and the other one is blasting me in this ear, but he's actually asking me like, hey, is everything good? Do you need anything? Whatever, right? So it happened quite a bit, and the great thing about being at Quantico and knowing so many people at Quantico, I had a boot blowout on one of the hikes. I sent a letter home, which got them that day. I had boots the next afternoon.
Oh, my lord.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah. A lot of
it was,
friends.
yeah. I mean, I learned early on that the system can be manipulated, and you have to be, you know, aggressive in kind of being the chess master almost. But yeah, it was fantastic. And when we got our little half a day break from like Saturday afternoon till Sunday afternoon or something like that, or Saturday evening to Sunday afternoon, you know, I was able to go to my apartment, and just crash out there. I didn't have to get a hotel room or like most guys, or cram everybody in a hotel room. So it was nice, and I understood, having observed all of that. I understood a lot of what was going on, like games. And if you as candidates, if you get to a place early, they're going to mess with you, right?
Yes.
So bottom line is, you want to get there at the time that you're supposed to be there, because then it's like, hey, you're here to be trained, and boom, now you go on to the next thing,
Yeah.
So understanding that and being able to explain some of that to like the college grads and the academy guys and things like that, it I think it started my commissioning my commission career on the right foot, because I always felt very compelled to be a mentor. And I was 10 years in at that point when I went to OCS, and you have guys coming straight out of college, uh, so all walks of life. But that was one of the things that I really gravitated towards, was being able to do that. You know,
That is from my I'm 9 years in right now, but every from the ones I've talked to 25, 30 years in to, 5 years in basically that have some position of authority, that's always the feeling that's the best. If you're not a masochist or whatever,
yeah,
it's the best feeling is like leading others and showing them the proper way to do things and then seeing that play out. You're like, thank God I'm actually doing something tangible, I guess, that's
that's right.
affecting others in a positive way.
Well, yeah, and leadership, I think in general is we talk about the tangible attributes of leadership. Leadership is super intangible. Leadership to me is a feeling. That one specific example is when I'm a pretty funny guy, I think, and I think one of my evals actually said, "Laughs in the face of adversity," right? Because life is pretty serious. Our jobs are pretty serious. Our chosen profession. So if you can make light of certain things, it's going to bring that stress level down just enough where you're more effective, and you operate at a higher level. So
Absolutely.
for me, when my guys knew that jovial edge was gone, they knew, shit, we've just flipped the switch, and it's all business. You know what I mean? And that's that intangible, innate ability to instill that in others that are going to follow you into the depths of hell. And I was fortunate that I
Yes.
had that.
I think that hits it right on the nail of when your dudes know when it's time to laugh and when it's time to go. There's no I can write this down. It's a communal experience of your unit being like, hey, this is the time and this is when we got to go, and that guy knows when we're supposed to do that. That is perfect. The best way I've ever heard it explained.
Yeah. So it was good. So after OCS, I went to comm school as as a lieutenant, and then I went down to Camp Lejeune, and a year later, I was deployed, and it's almost like I didn't stop for 8 years, 9 years, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But and as a lieutenant, so now as a lieutenant, if I'm in my dress uniform, I have gold jump wings. I have you know 3 or 4 rows of ribbons and whatnot. I have a presidential service badge.
So you look crazy to all the other LTs.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
but I didn't even wear my jump wings on my camis, right? It saddened me to realize how many staff NCOs uh, would choose to try and make an example out of a young or a new lieutenant, call it, instead of taking them under their wing and you know training them, giving them experience, giving them like, hey, this is what I've been doing for 10 years, whatever. But there's so many out there, and I did this on purpose, that they would talk about, lieutenants don't know anything, and lieutenants just stand there and whatever, right? And I just let them just talk, just keep talking, boys, and the lieutenant doesn't know anything and this and that, right? Well, I had I needed to use a power grid off of another company's power, right? Because my power grid was down. So I went in, and there's a big old guy standing in the doorway, no blouse on, right? Just in boots and utes. And I walk right by him, and I see the OPSO was in the back office, and I was like, hey, just so I'm here to use your power grid. He's like, yeah, yeah, no problem, bud. no problem, brother, whatever. And so I go walk by this guy who's standing in the doorway, and he's like, oh, I guess fuck me, right? And I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, well, I'm just standing here, and you just walk right by me, and you know, don't even acknowledge or anything. And I mean, this is my compound or whatever. I was like, oh, okay. I said, you know, still don't know who you are, and quite frankly, I don't care.
Yeah.
And
As you should.
yeah, and he turns out to be like the company gunny, right?
Mm.
And so he's like, well, I'm staff sergeant such and such. I said, okay, staff sergeant. I'm Lieutenant Colgate. And he's like, well, if I was to come down to your place, I would make sure that I use the proper channels, and I said, yeah. I said, I'll tell you what, staff sergeant, uh, don't ever come down to my place. I said, because your lack of professionalism is not welcome there, and my guys who are professional and aggressive, they will put you in your place very quickly. I don't care who you are, but you're not going to talk to anyone the way you're talking to me. I said, and you should probably figure out who you're talking to before you just think you're going to talk to a lieutenant the way you're talking to him.
Absolutely.
And he's like, well, I said, no. I said, this is not a conversation at this point, right? And I'm pretty sure that I use some
I'm sure there
more,
was some colorful
yeah,
language.
probably some
Yeah.
knife hands and
Yeah. Yeah.
some expletives or what have you. But it was one of those things where it's like, I'm not that guy. And the fact is, you thinking that you can talk to lieutenants like that, you have already failed your own lieutenants.
Yes. Yes. The people that try to stress I'm this person, you're going to treat me this way, like you've already lost the battle, brother. You get treated how you treat other people. You need to act professional at all times if you're going to be in that situation because other people are dependent on you.
That's
Quit
right.
acting like that.
Yeah. I have never been in my own areas and had to tell anybody that I was in charge,
Because they knew. Because it's inherent.
because you carry yourself in a certain way that everyone understands, and yeah, it's just odd, and that's what I hated about so much of the people that you know the look at me's, right? Look at me, look at me, look at me, and because imagine how effective you could be if instead of you jumping up and down all the time, waving your arms, saying "look at me," that you actually applied that to getting the mission done, or to just
Yes.
taking care of your guys or your Marines or soldiers or whatever. You put that effort into taking care of them, everybody's going to look at you. So that's what always has really saddened me in the guys that we have, and it goes across all military, but also goes across all businesses too at this stage. Everybody wants to, look at me and just put if you put half of that effort into taking care of your guys. Marine Corps, we say mission accomplishment and troop welfare. Those are our the two main objectives, and mission accomplishment is first. Well,
Always. Yeah. I think
I
yeah.
always, yeah. So I always inverted those, and guys would say, "Well, sir, that's wrong," or how are you going to do that? I say, "Well, regardless of what the mission is, if my guys aren't ready and the welfare of my guys and my troops isn't looked out for, isn't at the priority, what difference is the mission? You're not going to have anybody to do it. So if you take care of your guys with the mission in mind, everyone's successful, and the value of what you do leading up to that mission pays off, larger dividends. So I guess it's how you spend and how you approach each day. But I always wanted to work each day like we're preparing for something. So then when we actually had a mission to go and do, we were always ready. We never had to stop normal things and prepare. We could actually you know, tighten up a few things, tweak a few things, and be out the door. So a lot of guys don't buy into that either because they, for any inspection, regardless of what it is, they shut everything down and it's all inspection prep. Well, if you do all that stuff what you're supposed to every single day,
Then it's not big deal.
it's not.
We just I we just went through this with we had rail. When you go to NTC or whatever, we're doing Europe deployments right now. I just got to a unit that came back. So the past 2 months, basically, well, really the past 3 weeks is when we've been doing rail ops, which we're pulling all the vehicles off, sending them back. And it's extremely mismanaged and stuff. We did the best we could. But in that time, they also scheduled a GSU inspection. Why? I don't know. But they did a GSU inspection, OCIE layout, which half their stuff's in the connexes, and counselings. My thing was, I was like, I already counseled my dudes. Like, I already did that. And then AGSU inspection, I just took out of the board. And then others, like, they announced it, though, 5 days before. And granted, I'm new, so I'm missing a few things, but my uniform's ready and stuff. Like, little things, right? And I knew a lot of guys before I got here that you always keep it ready. Those little things, right? If you're prepped, it's not a big deal. But then they bring this down and everyone wants to complain. And you're like, if you're taking care of it like on the front end, it doesn't matter on the back end. Who
Yeah.
cares? And then like on the back, sorry, you went on this the tangent. It wasn't a tangent even. You're making your point, but like you're making the best points of like take care of your guys, take care of whoever you're working with, and the mission's gonna get accomplished. But if all you're worried about is yes, will do, or a Wilco, whatever,
Yeah.
and you're always saying that, and you're not worried about how your guys are doing or girl, whatever, however your soldiers are doing, it's gonna fall through the cracks because you're not taking care of the base level. You can't build a house without a good foundation. That's all it is. I appreciate to hear that, especially from an officer, but it also shows like from your NCI pulling over to the officer side, that's true leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. It's no, you're absolutely right. And the thing with I used to chuckle at uniform inspections, you know, and the only thing it takes to maintain uniforms is effort, right? Because our bodies are going to change. That's a given. Whether you get wider or skinnier, fatter,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
But you have to put a little bit of effort into, you know. And the guys that hated uniform inspections were the guys that were cheap bastards and refused to get a bigger shirt or
Yes.
have their pants let out or whatever.
All you gotta do is go get it taken out a little bit.
That's
If you
it.
gained some weight, it's no big deal.
Yeah,
Or if
that's
you
it.
lost weight, get it taken out.
Yes, So I mean, it's. I look back and so much is just silliness. It's like you would rather bitch, about a uniform inspection than take an hour and go get it fixed.
And that's the funny part. You're at work. Nobody's
Yes.
going to complain to you and say, hey, for an
No.
hour, I got to go drop my uniform off, pick up some stuff from the
Yeah.
clothing and sales. Like, nobody's like, you're not going to do that. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's.
Exactly. Anyway, but yeah. So uh, after 2001, uh, the attack September 11th, then I was gone. I left in December and I went over to UCOM, European Command in Stuttgart.
1 second. No. Guys, get your butts downstairs. I know. Go downstairs, okay? What? Yeah, go. Yeah, go. Go downstairs. We got
Yeah,
some extra audience.
yeah, no worries.
Yeah. You know how it is, man.
I do. Um, so I was running from '01, end of '01 to summer of '02. I was running action officer stuff out of Stuttgart, but I was responsible for the Georgia Training and Equip mission in the Pankezi Gorge, which is in between. That's the route that the Soviets took to get into Afghanistan the first time.
Oh, okay.
So trying to make sure those guys were taken care of and wasn't going to be a soft noodle if they were to come back through. Was a big deal for us. And then we did some MEO operations, maritime interdiction stuff in the Med, putting beacons on cargo ships and trying to track where things were going, stuff like that. So that was pretty cool.
It sounds like throughout your whole career, you've been pretty engaged, like throughout the world, whether it was like, stateside mission or otherwise, like you were always doing your job, which a lot of people find that's hard to do now. So it seems like you were very engaged.
Yeah.
This is, sorry, uh, this is early 2000.
Yeah. So this is 2001, 2002. Yeah. And then came back summer of 2002, and then immediately started doing workups to deploy. And then we deployed to Saudi and Iraq in January of 2003, and did the invasion there. Kind of bounced around a little bit, didn't do a whole lot. Kind of supported the MEU that was coming in through Nasiriyah, and that a lot of my guys were there on that MEU that was they were on that MEU for, I want to say, 9 months, almost maybe even more, which is usually a 6 month deal. So to just kind of stay engaged and keep supporting those guys. And then I left the desert in '03, summer of '03, and went straight to Paris Island to train recruits for 3 years. So
Wow.
that was '03 to '06. Had a great tour there.
I want to hear about it. Let me take a quick break and then we'll
Absolutely.
jump right back to that. Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
Teddy, I'm gonna take care of my kids, and
Yeah.
then I'm gonna keep this rolling just because
Okay.
I've never done this, so I don't know if I need to keep it rolling or not. So I'm just gonna keep it rolling.
Okay.
Let's do a 5 minute break, and then I'll
Okay.
be right back to you. Okay?
Yeah, no worries. Sounds
Thank
good.
you. I hope it's going okay.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
having
that's all
fun.
good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Teddy.
You good?
Turned on Muppets. I think we're
Yeah.
solid
No,
now.
no, I get it for sure. I'm
Yeah.
actually so I live in Texas, but I'm in Virginia now with my three boys.
Okay.
So yeah, so I definitely get it, and I can appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. We got 6, 5, 4, and 2. So
Uh,
it's pretty wild. It's
yeah.
fun, but it's
Well,
wild.
we we have uh 12, 13, 15.
But yeah. So
So,
yeah.
but that's during my deployments. I mean, we were like pre Iraq, post Iraq, pre
Mm.
Afghanistan. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, that's the time frame. But yeah.
That's how ours. I was in Afghanistan for the first full year of my son born, and then my daughter was born halfway through it,
Okay.
and then it was 3 months TDY immediately, like on top of the deployment, and then I did drill for 3 years. So
Oh wow.
it was all during like their childhood and stuff.
Sure.
So now it's good. I get to see them and stuff. It's nice.
Yeah.
But
No, that's awesome.
so we'll jump right back in. You were talking about what was it? Going to not Quantico, the Marine base, right?
Yeah.
Not
Paris Island.
MR Paris Island
Yeah.
to train, right? I guess how does that work for you guys with an officer going there? Are you in
Yeah.
charge of
So
the entire
yep.
company or
So
something?
when an officer comes down, there's an officer in charge of a series and then companies. So I started off being a series commander, and I had basically three three platoons of recruits with anywhere from 9 to 12 drill instructors.
Okay,
And then I eventually took a company, which I doubled that. Right, there's
right,
so
yeah,
two series in a company. So, but it was great because I got there, and the drill instructors that were there were not they didn't have combat under their belt just yet,
okay.
right? So
The
you could
drills
tell.
didn't in like '04, '05, or '03.
I got there in '03.
Okay, yeah. So I guess it was hit
So
or miss still.
you would have one or two, because we a buddy of mine, not in my company, a different company, he did the first Afghanistan mission right after 9/11. So he finished that, and then he went to Paris Island. But it was few and far between. So then, you start seeing grown. I'm going to say grown men. So we're talking 25 or older, right? Coming down and signing up to join the Marine Corps. I had a 28-year-old that he was a very successful stockbroker in New York, and he was a reservist. And I had asked him, I was a company commander at the time, so we're fast forward, we're probably in 2004 or five at this point. And I said, why would you come down here? And he's like, sir, they attacked my city. You know, I mean,
Hell yeah.
he's
That
like,
pumps
I,
you
I
up
don't,
though.
yeah, oh, yeah. He says, I don't know what what I will do or anything like that, but I know I had to do something, you know. And when he graduated, his buddies came down to pick him up, and they brought his some Lamborghini fancy deal, and so
Sure.
he could so he
Yeah.
could drive it home, And he gave me his business card from Wall Street, and he's like, "Sir, here's my card. If you ever come to New York, let me know, and I'll take care of you, and you won't have to worry about a thing." And but I mean, that's the caliber of people that you were getting
Yeah.
uh, in the military training at that point, because they you knew when you signed up for the military during that time frame, call it 2002, probably up through 2010.
Hmm.
I would say that you absolutely knew that you were signing up to go into harm's way.
Yes.
So the caliber of recruit that we saw during my time down there from '03 to '06 was higher. And then probably about 6 months after I got there is when you started seeing drill instructors show up, going through drill instructor school and whatnot, having felt combat, right? Or
Yes.
felt the angst of war.
And obviously that's a deep combat because it was the first, what, 3 years, basically the war, 3, 4 years, the war. They're seeing crazy direct action,
Yeah,
GWAT type stuff that had never really been dealt with since Vietnam, essentially.
right. So you got '04 Fallujah, Mahdi, all of those that were significant during that time frame. And yeah, so these guys are coming back now. So now you put that and you layer that on top of just being a Marine Corps drill instructor. And now these guys have a different mindset to train recruits because they know what they need to get out of these kids. That was a huge difference. And you could see that where I was, having gotten down there, leaving the desert, going down to Paris Island, kind of, looking around like, I don't know if this is it.
Yeah.
And then 6, 8, 9 months later, you start to see the guys that you expect to train and get those intangible attributes out of these kids that they don't even know exist yet. So when that happened, that was mind blowing because you could see the difference. You could see a legit, and everyone says it, but you could see the transformation happen from this, big eyed civilian kid that wants to do right by his country till turning into, holy shit, this kid is going to do something very special in his life.
Did you struggle with that, like as those drills transitioned, obviously? And you're like the company commander. Was that a hard like turn of the cog for you, or were you like, no, I get this. Like this is important.
Yeah, no, it was not hard. It was easy for me to support those guys, from an enlisted background to what I'm required by law to make sure, all these things happen safely and responsibly and things like that. So they knew where I stood, that, I'm entrusted to make sure that these kids are trained, equipped, have all the tangible and intangible attributes to be successful not, not doing their job at the base, but training you to go do your job in harm's way and come home. More so be able to do that by taking care of the guy front, right, left, back. And if you can do that and you have the drill instructors with that same mindset that, you know what, all we're trying to do is make these guys as mentally tough and prepared to not be surprised. You are going to see not so nice things when you're in harm's way. You are going to feel like it may be the end. But the mental side of that, if you can be mentally tough and understand that, you know what, my mind will break and my mind will quit faster than anything else that I have. Physically, my body has so much more in it, and I
Yes.
break through my mind or through your other senses, your smell, your eyes, what you hear. All those things can break you down way before your body breaks down. We always try to go a little bit extra on teaching some of those things. Not so much inside the curriculum as established, but
Sure.
we,
Yeah. That no, that's that hip pocket training. That's
yeah,
not
that's
that's
exactly right.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
is exactly right. You're right. And yeah, I mean, and I think it resonated with those guys. I would see, well, fast forward now it's '07, and I'm with the First Iraqi Army Division MIT. Um, I get there, and it's kind of a hodgepodge group. One of the augmented gunners was one of my recruits,
Wow.
and he had heard my voice. I was talking to somebody. He had heard my voice, and he's like, oh, one of the other gunners comes over. And he was just some good old good old boy. And he's like, "Hey, sir, I got a question for you." I was like, "Okay, what's up?" And he's like, "Do you know this guy?" And I turned around, and I never forget. This kid was so pasty white and red hair, ginger, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
It's
so
always like a distinguishing feature. If you
yeah,
like know it like that, you're like, that's
yeah.
you.
And I looked at him, and I was like, well, from the look of him, I'm guarantee he knows who I am. And he says, "Well, sir, he said you were his company commander at recruit training." And I was like, "Oh," I said, "There you have it." I mean, so, but we got a kick out of it because, like, to hear him say thank you, you know, for what you and how you trained him, and what you provided and things like that, and then to be able to see him do his job in real time. That's why we do what we do. It's
Every day. That's all. That's all.
yeah. I mean, you can keep the accolades and everything else. I want the guys that are with me to understand that, what, that's the dude. you know and I'm the dude because that's the dude. you know and so yeah, so it was pretty cool. And the being able to see that. And I think last week or the week before, I got a Facebook Messenger from from a kid that was in Afghanistan with me 15 years ago. And I said, all the niceties and stuff like that and whatever. And he was just like, I really appreciate what you did for me and everything else. And, thank you for, you know, how you conduct yourself and who you are and all these things. I was like, and again, I'm trying to be the nice, and like, well, you work hard and, you got this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then he said, I think I was your first field grade NJP. And I was like, oh,
The plot
shit.
thickens. Yeah.
And he's like, and I appreciate how you handle that because, you used it as a learning point, and, you adjudicated me, commensurate with what I did. It wasn't like an example. And he said, and I was able to bounce back. Oh yeah, that's what it was. So I had NJP'd him before we left for something. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And then I told him, and I told most of them, I said, I look forward to giving this back to you, right? And then fast forward, and we were in Afghanistan, and I promoted him in Afghanistan.
Hell
That's what it
yeah.
was. So
That's so awesome.
it's just one of those things where that's the value of getting it,
Yeah,
whatever it is. When you get it, you live it, and it comes full circle.
I just had a guy, not just, but a couple months ago, I started this podcast, but I was a drill, obviously, and I had a guy message me, and I had done maybe 20 episodes, maybe 10, I don't know. But he messaged me and said, you were a good drill. Like, thank you for that. Listening to your stuff, you've been speaking out about, military in general, and then the problems they have. He's like, I was contemplating a lot of like harmful thoughts, like suicide and stuff. And this is kind of getting me through it right now, hearing stuff like that. And that's not to like put him on a pedestal, like for getting through that, or me, like this podcast. It's like that is the thing that you're talking about is the leadership, the work you do. I don't care about like accolades or anything. I care about the people that you're doing it for if they're getting something out of it. That's it. Like that's all you really want. Or the true I guess the true people. The people because you and I both know people that are they're doing this not for they're doing it for very selfish reasons. The people that are doing it for positive though that we both know love that and applaud them for it because that's we just want people to do better than what we had or we just want them to succeed in general, you know?
Yeah,
So
no, that's exactly right. And which I will fast forward to '09, and I kind of
you're with the Mew, right? You said the
yeah. So no, this is
or no,
2009.
yeah.
So
You didn't
2009,
call it a
I
Mew. You
was
called it something else.
yeah, I was with the MEB in
Meb.
Afghanistan, and I was a comm company commander. So we traveled all over the AO to establish comms because when we first got there wasn't really comm nodes at all, and so traveling whatever. I caught a ride from LAR in a C7 LAV, which is the communication variant, and we were static, and my door got rammed by a 22-ton LVS logistics vehicle, which at the time I thought it was a blast, and I was knocked out. The uh, my first sergeant was with me, and he was like, sir, are you all right? And he'd said it probably 7, 8 times, and then finally I said, yeah. And he said, can you move? I said, yeah. Well, he had said that 4 or 5 times, and finally I'm like kind of shaking the cobwebs off. So, but I was a major at the time, and I wasn't get out. We got to climb out through the hatch, and the doc on site checks me, and he's like, you good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I was not good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Head was pounding. My whole left side was torqued up a little bit, and I've since had my neck fused and 3 back procedures. So, um, I mean, but it is what it is. So we get back to the next base, and then I told First Sergeant that I'm not okay, and he's like, yeah, no shit. So we actually cross decked and jumped on a helo, caught a ride back to Leatherneck, Camp Leatherneck, and instead of going to the aid station, I just hit the tent and I slept for a couple days. Not the smartest thing. I get it. And then afterwards, I reported, and they're like, "Oh, well, you might have had something, but you're presenting."
Yeah.
Fast forward to the end of the deployment, and we're doing all of our post deployment health assessments and things like that. So it was voluntary in end of '08 and '09, but it was a TBI pre deployment screening. Right.
Yeah.
I made my whole company do it. On the backside, we do the post deployment TBI screening. Right. And at the last question, it says, "Do you want to speak to a provider?" And I said yes. So I'm in this office, and there's a female doctor. She's like, "Well, sir, what seems to be the problem?" I said, "Well, I said, you know, I'm not right. Something is not okay." So you remember when I told you when I went to Okinawa and I felt like I was like operating at a higher level?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm asking this doctor that I know something's not right. She's like, I said, okay, well, why do you say something that I'm okay? And she's like, well, I'm looking at your screening, and your average, above average in places and things like that. I said, okay. I said, what does my pre what does my pre-deployment say? And she's like, well, I didn't have to look at that one because this one is okay. I was like, ma'am, I need you to look at that one, because if not, then you don't have a baseline. So she, gets
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
you know, like I'm wasting her time. She gets up and comes back like 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, whatever it was, with 5 other doctors. She sits down and she says, "Sir, I am so sorry. My pre-deployment was like off the charts. Everything was elevated. Everything was above average or super high, whatever.
And then jump down.
Yeah, and now I'm just like normal. So like today, when I meet someone for the first time, I present very well because they don't know me before,
Right.
right? My family, they recognize it, right? Anyone that's been with me recognizes it, but my processing is slower. Sometimes my my mind and my mouth don't sync up. One's either faster or slower, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was a big deal, and that was the
That's
first time that I realized, okay, well, I'm not crazy, and this is going to be the beginning of my long game, beginning of my journey. Because if they're going to do that to an '04 with 20 years in the Marine Corps, what are they doing to the fucking kid that has two years and 3 deployments? They're just trying to push him along. It was kind of that turning point in my life, and then I was set to retire 2 years later, and I did that. And since then, we're talking 15 years now since the October '09 uh, Afghanistan crash, and just this last year, I feel like I have gotten over the hurdle of actually understanding things, which
was
brings
that
me to like why I do what I'm doing right now.
yeah. It was that because I think a lot of us in the military, I don't I don't know if I've ever got I really honestly, like you said that, and I'm like, I've really never got that looked at. But like a lot of us, I think, never really got it looked at. Or you were like, and you talked about the doctor being like, she's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't look at this. But that happens a lot in the military because there's so many people going through. They don't have the time to look at all that stuff. How are you processing that after that? Like that they say that, and then are you just like your mind's like blown at that point because you're like, I'm not where I was, and they've shown me that now. I guess you're going to go into that obviously, but I can't imagine how to understand that cognitively of I was this high functioning person and I'm here now. What do I do?
It was a lot of anger, right? A lot of anger about
Sure.
just not being able to do things as quickly as you once could. Figuring out problems, or when I say thinking at a high level, and being able to play the proverbial chess game, it was slowed down, and it made me it made me normal almost, and it pissed me off. It was yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where this was in 2010, 11 ish. I retired in 2012, and then you know I'm with the VA. VA is they blanket everything in PTSD. You know, and when you look at everything that has happened to you up until this point in your life, all those things are compounded. Whether it's a blow to the head playing pee wee football, or you fall out of your bunk bed and you hit your head, right? All these things like take its toll on your brain, and then when you have exposure, you have blast, all these things just keep compounding, and eventually you get fed up and you're like, oh, okay, that's just how I am. But it doesn't have to be that way. And there's a lot of organizations out there now, And I was lucky enough this summer to go to Colorado with the Marcus Institute for Brain Health. And I learned so much with the vestibular issues that I was dealing with, my balance, and, just kind of swaying from my eyes being tired and not being able to focus on what I'm looking at, or, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I just need glasses, or whatever. No, it's because your brain is working its ass off just to do normal things. And there's ways to be able to retrain all of that stuff. Your eyes are a muscle, your vestibular system is a muscle. All these things, if it's a muscle, you can build it, you can rebuild it, you can grow it. So that's the education part that so many guys don't realize, is like, oh, this is just, oh, I'm just getting older. No, too many concussions or whatever. No, that's what the VA tells you, right? So for me being super angry when I retired, it's the VA just kept throwing food, kept throwing medicine at me, right? Which is like food to them,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing was work. So they don't want to address the problem. They just want to, kind of suppress it until what, there's and I'm kind of going into my journey right now.
No, yeah, I get it. I
Is that
get the
okay?
flow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so things that I have dealt with for over a decade, they call Fatal Five, right? So that's a TBI, that's post traumatic stress, chronic pain, insomnia, and then mood, which is depression, anxiety, what have you, right? So all five of those, when you have one or two, whatever, right, they attack that. But when you have all five, especially the VA, have no idea how to start.
So they're just throwing, see
Yeah.
what sticks.
So we're gonna tell you need more sleep, you need more exercise, and here's more medicine, right? So, but I'm gonna tell you that the fatal five, that directly leads to 22 a day. That's the problem. Because, and I will say that me personally, I live with this every single day, and I still have those five, but I acknowledge those five. I recognize those five, like, hey, here we are, guys. What's the closest alligator to the boat today? Because that's what we're going to chip away at, right? But when you don't notice and you don't recognize those five, and you just try to grind, which I did for a decade, right? You end up like me, April 16th, 2016, and you put a 45 in your mouth. That is why I do what I do right now. Is I If I can get somebody to understand, I've been doing this for 15 years. If I can get someone to understand the last year and the last 2 years of what I've been, like, trying to process and understand, maybe they don't have to have a April 16th, 2016 in their journey, right? Because maybe it doesn't end the way mine, fortunately, was favorable, right? So if you can do that, and that's about education and awareness, and getting guys, and I say guys, but obviously I mean guys and gals,
Yeah,
or,
I got you. Yeah.
but it's getting these guys to understand that, one, you don't have to accept not being taken care of. I don't care if you're active duty, not active duty, retired, just a veteran. You do not have to accept not being taken care of, because no one gives a shit about you more than you. And if you allow your providers to say, "Oh, yeah, it's no big deal," well, it is a fucking big deal, right? It's a big deal to me. It's a big deal to my family. It's a big deal to my people that I hold near and dear. It's a big deal to you and your kids and your family. So they don't get to tell you it's not a big deal, right? If you accept that, then you're allowing them to dictate and shape the narrative of your care, and that should not exist, right?
I
So
I
go ahead.
think, sorry, you hit so many solid points. Like the five finger thing, that was perfect. Like so many guys I talk to more active guys than out, But the ones I've interviewed that were out, those five are big. The guys that are in, they may not have all five, but they have three or four.
I guarantee they have all five.
Yeah, and that's you don't even realize it, and you're just like, I'm gonna tough this shit out.
Yeah.
Like I got to get through this. Like
Yep.
for me personally, I don't think I have all five. I don't know. The thing I realized though, as you're talking about it, you're like, that's what you got to do every day. You go, what's closest to me? How do I deal with this? And if you can do that, you can avoid that April 16th, like you're talking about, April 16th, right? To 2016, right? You can avoid those type of things. If you're taking care of yourself, your family's not going to wonder every day, is he coming back today? Those are solid points. And the fact that you can go other places than the VA. Everyone complains about the VA nowadays. I get it. Like, it's not, I always explain it to my family members as socialist healthcare. If you ever wanted socialist healthcare, you look at the VA, and that's what's going on. It's not a knock on them. I know they're doing their job, but it's so many people coming through over and over. If you just like look for other options outside of that, you can find solutions. Is it going to be tough? For sure. It's going to be not a quick fix of, I got this overnight, now I'm healed. No, pills don't fix it all. Therapy over time, like over a couple weeks, doesn't fix everything. But these options are out there that are going to help you. And Teddy, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Continue. I'm sorry. That was just
Well, and
perfect.
just to touch on what you just said, PTSD, PTS, whatever, I say PTS a lot of times because it's not a disorder. It's not like
Yeah.
you know, but
Everyone
you know,
has it. Like, not everyone has it. I'm sorry. I'm jumping back again, but not everybody, I don't mean that in the sense of post traumatic stress disorder. If you look it up, right, it's a trauma caused by an event that happened. It doesn't have to be a firefight. It doesn't have to
yeah,
be
no,
a bomb going off next to you. It could be anything in your life where you experience stress and trauma from it
right,
in your mind.
yeah. And the thing is when you have that event, right, and you have PTSD, you're no longer living a medical model, right? And I say medical model like, um, okay, you got a rash on your cheek, you get some cream, you put it on, it goes away,
It's a
right?
prognosis. You have a
Yeah,
disease, there's a prognosis. This is the course of events that are going to happen.
yeah.
You're saying
So
that stuff, it doesn't go like that.
right, so with PTSD, TBI, things like that, especially those two being co-occurring because they overlap so much and they impact the same things. You live for the rest of your life, you live a rehabilitation model. You are in rehab with those two things for the rest of your life. And I never processed that, right? I always wanted to take I wanted to find the meds that the VA was throwing at me. I wanted to find something that just worked, right? I honestly did. And the fact is nothing worked to the fact until I was explained that this is not a medical model. You live a rehab life now. You are in rehab for PTSD and TBI for the rest of your life. And you acknowledge that and you wake up in the morning and you count your blessings, you write your list of gratitude items in your life, one of which is just waking up, and you attack the day like you're trying to earn a coin, you know and there is no coin in the PTSD TBI rehab. Your earned are days, right? You earn days and extended life and joy from yourself and your family and those that you hold near and dear. That's the coin in the TBI and PTSD rehab, right? So that's what I struggle with every single day. The reason that I have been doing so many podcasts lately is because I feel like I am learning and I continue to learn about this journey. And all I want to do is shorten the struggle and the grind for everyone else. So I've been grinding for 15 years. And just these last couple years, I feel like I've made some headway. Well, maybe I can get information, education, awareness out there where somebody listening, realize that, what, I don't have to grind for 10 years. I can try and sort this stuff out and figure it out, now. And the goal is quality of life. You figure some stuff out and you improve your quality of life. Now all of a sudden the ripple effect, when my quality of life improves, my son's quality of life improves. So that's the ripple effect. That is what I try and encourage guys to do every single day, is figure out how do you improve your quality of life, regardless of how that is. And for me, in this journey, especially the last couple of years, it's finding some answers, finding an understanding of what you're going through, why certain things are happening, um, and then you attack it, you know, as the closest alligator to the boat. And you don't give up on yourself. But the two big things that you always have to do, especially in the PTSD rehab model, is give yourself credit for what you've already done and don't be so hard on yourself.
And those
Because
are two of the hardest things ever to do.
that and because military guys aren't geared that way, right? We're not wired that way. We're not wired to ask for help. So that's the message, right? Be your biggest fan. Don't be so hard on yourself, right? And give yourself credit, because that goes against everything that we as military guys have heard. So, and for me, like knowing that and saying that now, I mean, obviously you could probably see it. I get emotional because I wasted a decade searching, seeking those answers and stuff like that. So if somebody out there is listening, you look in that mirror, you can't lie to that person, right? You brushing your teeth, shaving your face, whatever, you can't lie to that person. Give that person credit for what you've already done and where you already are, and give yourself a break.
Teddy, I can't tell you how much that it strikes a chord with me, just because I struggle with that every single day of giving yourself credit. I think not every, majority of military guys, like you said, you wake up and all you do is judge yourself. Like I continue to do every single, like I'm working on that, but it is so hard to not just wake up and judge yourself. And you look in the mirror and 9 times out of 10, you hate yourself. You're like, I don't want to end it or anything, but I don't like where I'm at. I don't like what I'm doing. And I had this amazing support system around me. I have 4 kids and a beautiful wife who tell me every day, like I'm doing good work, good church. They tell me I'm doing God's work. I go to my parents. They tell me I'm doing amazing things. But in your mind, you can't get over that thing of I'm I'm not doing enough. I want to appreciate you for that, like sparking that in me of you really gotta get on yourself to say at least something. I'm doing good, because that's all I've heard through therapy, through anything, is you have to understand you're doing the best you can and you've done a lot more than you thought you could. So yeah, that strikes a chord with me a lot. So that was awesome. Can you please tell me now? Like I want to get to it because I'm running out a little bit of time, but
Yep.
you got involved. Obviously, you got out and stuff, and you're dealing with that. But I know your First Coast Heroes Outreach, right?
Yeah.
I don't want
First
to say
Coast
it
Heroes
wrong.
Outreach.
It's a
Yes, sir.
nonprofit. What do you got going on there?
Yeah.
What is
So
that?
originally we were founded in 2013 just to kind of get Marines together and take care of each other. And then we kind of opened it up to veterans. And then a couple of years ago, we rebranded to what we are now, First Coast Heroes Outreach, to take on veterans and first responders. And what we're doing now is just this right here. We're trying to get the education piece, the awareness piece for mental health and transition. And the reason we do it that way, because we're there's no paid staff. There's nothing. I mean, when we say we're a nonprofit, we are a legit nonprofit. Like we want to get the message out so people don't have to endure and grind for a decade like I did. And the reason we do it the way we do now specifically is there's plenty of agencies out there that are going to be reactive to crisis. So what we try and do, and unfortunately, this is the face. I mean, I'm sure we could find something better, but is to get that message out there that, you know what, you don't have to accept where you are. You don't have to grind. You know, the things that I've said here, you know, positive affirmations for yourself, you being your biggest fan, you being your biggest advocate, all those things have to start internally from within. And if we can get guys to understand that that is where it starts, then maybe we can prevent a crisis or two. And that's the goal is to get these guys understanding that, you know what, you're not the first person that's ever thought this. You're not the first person that's ever gone through this. And it's not a competition. It's simply an appreciation that everyone that you encounter when you, whether you go to church or the supermarket or the sporting event, everyone in those seats is going through something. So, and like I said, it's not a competition. It's just a fact that if we can get folks to understand that there are people that want to assist, that want to spend time, then maybe we can prevent some of these crises that happen because guys feel like they're alone and have no other options. So that's kind of the goal of Heroes Outreach. Our social media channels are heroes_outreach, and the website is heroesoutreach.org. When you publish this, you can put my Colegate at heroesoutreach.org is my email. And if you go to our website, there's there's a contact button there. If somebody has a question or just a concern or just a comment, they can click that and they can submit it right to us, and we'll get back to you. You know, usually same day. You know, or send me an email, or whatnot, and you know, I'd be remiss and get poked in the face if I didn't say there's also a donate button on that website as well. But rest assured, 91 cents of every dollar goes towards the education and the proactive approach to delivering the messages to folks that need it. And no one on our staff takes a salary, nothing like that. So I always say that most times I end up coming out of pocket for things just because people need it, and I have no problem with that. It's it's just that important to me that if we can improve quality of life for people, especially our veterans, then that's why we're put on this earth to continue this journey.
Teddy, you hit every note on the mark from where you came from to where you've been to where you're at now. No one's going to be shocked to see that what you're doing now is for a noble cause. You guys are crushing it. I hope it gets big. All I hope is that it gets bigger. I hope I get the word out. I hope you get the word out. And I hope the guys listening or whoever does that, they see there's outlets for them. You have been an outstanding guest for talking about all this. And I can't really thank you enough for personally for me. You helped me out a little bit during this, even if I'm not showing it too much. You helped me out a lot. And I hope the guys that hear this, they got some help. So thank you, Teddy, for coming on here, telling your story, and First Coast Heroes Outreach.
Absolutely.
It pumps me up. Guys, check it out. Or anyone, really, like if you're not even in the military, if you've been through some stuff, check it out. Teddy, thank you for coming on. You've been a wonderful guest.
I appreciate the opportunity, Benny, and thanks for what you do and continue to get the message and being a good platform for guys like me that we just really want to continue to build that camaraderie and be with like-minded folks that need each other. So last thing I will say, and as I part, is it's okay to make that call. It's okay to answer that call, and it's definitely okay to be the difference in someone's life. So I appreciate your time and what you've allowed me to do. So thanks, Benny.
Thanks, Teddy. You guys have a great night. Take care.